Honor and a privilege to once again rise in this honorable chamber to not only carry the banner of the Progressive Liberal Party, but on behalf of the people of our nation, and more specifically the residents of Grand Bahama, and to make my contribution to this resolution to thank Her Excellency the Governor General for her gracious speech from the throne. We all know the important role Her Excellency played in the history of the modern Bahamas, but as the former Minister for Grand Bahama, I had the opportunity to work closely with her in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. She demonstrated love and compassion for the people of Grand Bahama and played an intricate role in sensitizing the business community in a fundraising efforts to help those who are in desperate need. Therefore, on behalf of the residents of Grand Bahama and the many of people she touched during their darkest moments, I wish to express our gratitude and thanks to Her Excellency. Madam President, before getting into my substantive contribution, and I would not be long today, with your leave, I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank the residents of Pine Ridge for their support, as well as the dedicated public servants who always get a bad name, and the professionals from the private sector who work closely with the government in my capacity as the former Minister for Grand Bahama. You know, Madam President, as bad as people talk with civil servants, I was pleasantly surprised coming from the private sector to find so many hard-working public officers who were eager to work closely with the people's agenda to bring about positive change in a system that is challenged. I would also like to take this opportunity to send get-well wishes to my friend stalwart Councillor Mabel Gibson, who unfortunately was in a terrible traffic accident days ago in Freeport and had to be airlifted to the Princess Margaret Hospital for further medical care. We are all praying for her recovery. And finally, I would wish to extend deepest condolences to the family of the late Ken Motorboat Ferguson, a cultural icon in our community and the officer in charge of the Grand Bahama Road Traffic Department. And finally, well wishes to the late Jack Parker, Grand Bahama's very own native cowboy. May their soul rest in peace. Madam President, after being grossly neglected by the Ingram administration from 2007 to 2012, the people of Grand Bahama cried out for focus and immediate attention. Our administration immediately implemented a comprehensive strategy that would improve health and educational infrastructure, enhance and simultaneously grow our tourism and industrial sector, train Grand Bahamians, and as a result create employment and entrepreneurial opportunities for all. Madam President, although Hurricane Matthew hindered our momentum, it did not stop our plan to diversify the economy of Grand Bahama through the injection of hard-to-find capital into our island's economy and investing in training, employment of our young people. Evidence-based research led the way for the drafting of our 2030 Charter of Governance that was presented to the people of this country, outlining what we would implement from day one if we had a second term in office. Our plan going forward was to continue with our well-funded capital works projects, the launch of our aggressive medical tourism strategies, focus our attention on attracting second home owners back to Grand Bahama, further expansion of our industrial sector, and our world-class ship care facility, capitalize on opportunities in the maritime industry, and work with our private sector partners to establish a new SC break bulk logistics center. All these initiatives would have proved to be instrumental in the Progressive Liberal Party's strategic plan for economic reform over the next 15 years. Among the many capital works projects and infrastructural upgrades initiated by the Progressive Liberal Party were the construction of a new state-of-the-art clinic in West End as a plan to improve medical outcomes for the residents in that outlying community. It was also an instrumental part of the sale for the Ginn property, and I was so pleased that the state-of-the-art facility was commissioned last week, clearly demonstrating and outlining our plan for economic reform. Then there was the renovation and expansion of the High Rock Clinic, the construction of a new fire station on Settlers Way that was finished a few months ago and still not open for the general public, the construction of the Fishing Hole Road Bridge, the construction of the new junior high school in Holmes Rock, the construction of the new government complex in 8 Mile Rock, and the construction of the seawall in Smith Point. All these capital works projects were designed to improve the quality of life for the residents of Grand Bahama and act as a primer to boost our local economy. Madam President, contracts were awarded for the renovations of the Rand Memorial Hospital, which include the renovation of the kitchen cafeteria facility that was presently located in the middle of the surgical and medical wards at the site, and was proved necessary to create the new critical bed space to compensate for the shortages that presently exist at the Rand Memorial Hospital, while the construction would begin for our 62,000 square foot Freeport Community Clinic on a new greenfield site on East Sunrise Highway. I am pleased, after speaking with the Minister of Health, that these plans for the expansion of our healthcare facilities on Grand Bahama remain a priority for the present government. Thank you. Madam President, under our watch, the Grand Bahama Shipyard Employment Program was created, which was designed to train and employ some 600 young Grand Bahamians, 50 every 3 months at that facility. Up to May 2017, approximately 200 young Bahamians were certified and employed as riggers, blasters, and painters at that facility just prior to us leaving office. It is my understanding, however, that since then, no additional persons were hired, and some 70 plus employees were terminated. I have spoken to at least 20 of these workers who have lost their jobs in the last few months. The Minister for Grand Bahama, on his feet yesterday, made mention of the labor issues with the independent contractor at the shipyard, Blue, that had some labor issues. I'm not speaking about that problem. I'm speaking about the program that was implemented by the government and the Grand Bahama Shipyard. I was also informed by reliable sources that no new apprentices have been hired as customary in July 2017. My question to the government, but more specifically the Minister for Grand Bahama, who's not here today, is what is happening with the state-of-the-art program that was put in place by our administration, and what will happen to the 40 new young men and women that were supposed to be hired last year? Madam President, while in office, we established an innovative Earn While You Learn program in conjunction with the Public Hospitals Authority, which was designed to train and employ young Grand Bahamians in the area of pre-allied health in order to fill the gaps at our mini hospital in Abaco and the 9 primary clinics in Grand Bahama prior to the implementation of universal primary health care by way of national health insurance. We also established the National Training Agency, the Trained Clinical Nursing Program, and revamped the Fresh Start program that was in place by the former Free National Movement government in conjunction with the private sector, all designed to provide training and employment opportunities for our young people, the ones that are devastated and were affected as a result of youth unemployment. As a result of our collaborative effort, our administration was able to reduce the unemployment rate throughout the country from 19.4% in 2012 when we came into office to just over 10% prior to leaving office, even in tough economic times. Madam President, under our watch, the tourism product on Grand Bahama was on the rebound. Prior to October 2016, we had an active cruise ship market that was growing, and an increased number of flights were being brought into Grand Bahama, bringing in much-needed stopover visitors to our shores. We attracted many international events and conferences, held 2 successful Junkanoo Carnival kickoff celebration, and the reports from the accounting firm clearly demonstrated the multiplier effect from the monies that were invested in Grand Bahama. The facts are there. Additionally, Madam President, prior to 2017 general election, we were in the advanced stages of negotiating the sale of the hotel and casino on the Lucayan Strip. We signed the heads of agreement with Carnival Cruise Line after spending more than a year negotiating with the Hutchison Group of companies to lift the exclusivity of ports on the island of Grand Bahama put in place by the former Free National Movement government. These successful complex negotiations made way for signing of the heads of agreement between Hutchison Whampoa, the Carnival Cruise Lines, and the government to construct the new cruise port in East Grand Bahama. We are asking in Freeport, with this transparent government, to please notify us and update us on what is happening with this particular deal. Madam President, the history books would reflect that despite the sluggish global economy and the difficulties we face to grow our local economy under tough times, there's no question that the Progressive Liberal Party left the island of Grand Bahama and our country better than we met it in 2012. Grand Bahama was in the recovery mode, poised for growth and ready to take its position for an economic comeback, even in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. But the Free National Movement went on vacation for 5 months and left things undone. Madam President, as an administration, we invested in the people. We laid a solid foundation for this government to build upon. Unfortunately, Madam President, our agenda came to a grinding halt on May the 10th, 2017, when the Bahamian people spoke loud and clear and rejected us at the polls. That's a fact. That's a fact. We were rejected at the polls. Madam President, the Free National Movement, in its political campaign, indicated to the Bahamian people that they had a master plan to turn Grand Bahama around and were ready to govern from day one. In the speech from the throne, Her Excellency, articulated very eloquently, and I quote, that this administration would launch a rebound of the island of Grand Bahama in accordance with the template of a master strategic plan designed for Grand Bahama. Accordingly, the government will establish a tourism signature identity in the marketplace for the island of Grand Bahama. I wish to ask the government, by way of the Minister of State for Grand Bahama, what is this so-called template that your administration is using? And for the sake of transparency, please outline some of the short-term strategies of your plans that must be executed now. Is this same template that was used over the past 2 decades, which took Grand Bahama on a roller coaster ride from boom to bust? Madam President, launching the rebound of Grand Bahama and having a master plan for Grand Bahama, as noted in the speech from the throne, looks good on paper. Boy, something about that shiny paper. Sound good, smooth, and sound good. But all of us have been around and have been in this political game of hide and seek and know that the devil is in the details. However, the people of Grand Bahama are tired of the games and calling on this so-called people's government to be transparent. Yeah, show us transparency and give them the details of your master plan. Not words, outline your plan. And not a Shark Tank plan to select 10 micro enterprises. That's not going to turn Grand Bahama around. It's good, but we need real action to turn Grand Bahama. People who have the ability and the entrepreneurial mind and the business acumen to implement policies that can bring forth real results. Please explain why short-term strategies of your plan have not been implemented after 5 months in order to stop the spiral. No, you have to implement short-term plans. Grand Bahama is in a crisis. You don't have time to pontificate. You got to act now. This is all in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. It's under your watch. Madam President, I would venture to say that the majority of Grand Bahamians are indeed trying to determine what the 5 members of Parliament, one who is the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, and the 2 other cabinet ministers are doing, other than dressing up and riding in Ekandu, while the people of the Bahamas and the people of Grand Bahama suffer. What is the master strategic plan that the F&M said they had for Grand Bahama on day one? I'm asking for the people. I'm asking for them. Madam President, the Cambridge Dictionary defines a template as something that is used as a pattern producing similar results. You know what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and getting no results. Madam President, the truth of the matter is we don't need an old template that continue to benefit the chosen few. What we need is a paradigm shift from the old into the new. The truth of the matter is, Madam President, that there is no workable template anywhere in the world that can be replicated on Grand Bahama. So a new strategic plan had to be created, and that it would be established and worked on by technical support in the midst of severe pushbacks from the powers that be. I asked again, what is this administration's plan for the economic recovery for Grand Bahama Island? How do your plan work? And how do you plan to establish the tourism signature identity in the marketplace for the island of Grand Bahama? When will we see signs and benefits of this master plan? I'm asking for the people. We are in crisis mode in Grand Bahama. We don't have time to have a steering committee. We need to act today. Madam President, these are all in the aftermaths of Hurricane Matthew. You have already outlined our plan that was scuttled as a result of a natural disaster. Grand Bahama is in a crisis. The Free National Movement don't have time for no steering committee. Act now. The people are on the streets demanding that you act. All I am is a voice and a reflection of what the people is asking for. Madam President, this F&M administration has been in office for 5 months, and nothing tangible has happened on the ground in Grand Bahama. The people are tired of talk from this administration, and a campaign that has been launched by the people of the island who are frustrated and demanding that you fix Grand Bahama. The people are demanding it. But instead of trying to fix Grand Bahama, the Free National Movement comes to this Parliament, or to this honorable place, 5 months later, after Her Excellency said her excellent words in Parliament. 5 months later, we're debating the speech from the throne and using smoke and mirrors as well as the blame game to distract the people of this country from the facts that you are not ready to govern. Madam President, they are halfway in their first year in office, and there has not been a single piece of legislation brought to this honorable place as part of your so-called change agenda. This is not only sad, but pathetic, and clearly demonstrate that the Free National Movement is lost and must find its way home. I'm going to tell you right now, from May to October, we did 21 first readings of bills with the leadership of the late Bernard Nottage. We passed 14 pieces of legislation, 14 pieces, by this time when we were in office. You have not brought one. You should be shamed. You have not brought one to this honorable place. You should not be. The Prime Minister of this country is obviously sleeping at the wheel. And we are watching as aggressive members of his cabinet are stepping forward, trying to fill the gaps, while others are still in the victory celebrations or still in vacation. So some are working. While the country is riddled with violent crime, Bahamians are being victimized, and we're watching it very closely, and we're going to be bringing it up because we are getting the names of Bahamians who are being victimized by this administration. Well, that's fine. We're watching closely. Yeah.
Madam President.
Hold on.
Madam President.
We have two people on.
No. Tell me, let him.
I have
tell me.
already.
Rule 31.
Excuse me. I need to know if it's a point of order, what rule is being infringed.
Rule 31. Gas and aspersions on members of the other place or this place.
What
To
expressions
suggest
like
that the government
Someone
is
must yield here.
victimizing somebody. Have a seat, please.
This is my opinion.
No.
I have a right for my opinion, Madam President.
Excuse me. Honorable Senator, would you yield, please?
Thank you, Madam President. For the member, even to express that opinion is objectionable and amounts to a violation of the rules of this Senate. It is an expression that is of opinion, if you will, that is geared to disparage members of this chamber who are members of the government, meaning ministers, or members of another chamber who are cabinet ministers. To suggest that the government is victimizing people without not one shred or scintilla of evidence to support such an egregious statement. And you, sir, as a former cabinet minister, who in your own day would have been accused on the streets of similar things, as you well know, you also know that you are entitled to stand on your privilege not to have someone stand in this place to make that kind of unsubstantiated, spurious, and egregious comment about you. And so, if you will not withdraw those words, I will ask that they be expunged from the record, forthwith.
Honorable Senator.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And AG, I will not withdraw my words because I am entitled. No, hold
Can I ask that his
Honorable
expression of
Senator-
opinion be
Let me
expunged from the
finish.
record?
Let me finish
He
my
stated
statement.
that he is not
Let me
withdrawing
finish.
his
I am
words.
not withdrawing my
Excuse
words.
me, Honorable
I
Senator.
ask that
my
those
opinion.
words
I have a
be
right to express my
expunged
opinion.
from the
Honorable
record of this
Senator.
House.
I have
Honorable
a right to
Senator,
express
sit.
my opinion in this honorable place. I have a right to do it, and I will continue to do it.
Madam President, expressions of opinion which disparage or cast aspersions on members of this place or any other house of parliament are not permitted. If he has evidence to justify his opinion, produce it. If he does not, he is not at liberty to express it in this place.
Madam President,
The
could I
rules
continue?
are clear.
Could I continue, Madam President?
Honorable Senator.
I've asked
Honorable
the chair to make a
Senator.
ruling.
I have no objection.
I've asked the chair to make a ruling.
Honorable Senators, both, can you have a seat?
Yes.
Page 28 in the rule book. 15, when an offensive, abusive, or insulting words are used by a senator in the Senate in the committee, I did not. Now, Honorable.
My opinion.
That was not stated at the time. Honorable Senator, you did not say it was your opinion at the time, nor did you say. You said it after.
I want to continue, Madam President.
Please continue, Madam President.
No, I did not agree. I didn't break any rules. I would like to continue.
Yes, you will continue, Honorable Senator. However, I'm going to warn you that you need to be very careful what you are saying about any senator or any person in that other place in terms of your remarks. Now, you can proceed, but I'm warning you, you must be careful. Please, Honorable Senator, take a seat. Would you please take a seat? I'm not entertaining that, Honorable Senator. Please wait. Senator Darbo, I need you to understand that you are being warned. Okay? I'm not going to tolerate this moving forward in your communication. You may proceed.
Thank you so much. Madam President, I came to this honorable place today to bring a message to members of the Free National Movement and my colleagues. The people of this country are wary of the accusations and tired of your political rhetoric. They want action and not talk. So ministers, senators, it's time to put the pedal to the metal and start governing this country. Madam President, while on the campaign trail, the Free National Movement said that you were ready to govern. And they would bring immediate change to Grand Bahama, jumpstart our local economy, and get the people in our tourism sector back to work. On contrary, Madam President, instead of bringing immediate relief to Grand Bahama like they promised, they have created new layers of bureaucracy to collect taxes, to frustrate the people trying to buy time. Madam President, the new policies and penalties are currently being implemented at the harbor, at the Grand Bahama Harbor. As customs and other agencies are doing things that are contrary without notifying the general public. I'm pleased to learn that there will be a meeting tonight in Grand Bahama with the business community at about 7 o'clock where some of these issues would be addressed. These issues are frustrating business owners and negatively affecting the ease of doing business in our community that is already challenged. You speak today about developing a plan for the ease of doing business. Meanwhile, you're implementing policies and strategies in Grand Bahama that is affecting the ease of doing business, contrary to what you say in this honorable place. Madam President, I recently watched a video with a small group of business owners from Grand Bahama, some who openly admit to be supporters of the Free National Movement, but are now experiencing, and I quote, the most difficult and trying times on the island of Grand Bahama. I admonish this administration and the leader of business in this honorable house to address these matters for the residents of Grand Bahama and come to our rescue to fix these concerns. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. You are an honorable gentleman. You are an honorable gentleman. Don't wait too long. Come now. Madam President, the people of Grand Bahama have just cause to be concerned. The tourism numbers have plummeted since Hurricane Matthew, and those in the industry are describing the present state as the worst has ever been in the history of the island. I was reliably informed by a concerned employee that recently, at one point, the largest resort on the island only had 14 guests check-in for a week. I was also informed that as a result of the sale that fell through with the Wind Group, many other resort properties on the island are experiencing great difficulty. Madam President, the Grand Bahama International Airport remains barren, empty, with flights barely coming in and bringing hardly any visitors to our shores. As a matter of fact, I've been advised that if we were to do a count on Grand Bahama today, there will be less than 500 tourists on the island of Grand Bahama. We are in crisis mode. To add insult to injury, I received a correspondence last night that confirmed that American Airlines discontinued their direct flight from Philadelphia to Grand Bahama for the winter season. This is another blow to the Grand Bahama economy and our tourism sector. We are in crisis mode. Madam President, the Port Lucayo marketplace, once a vibrant center for economic and tourism activity on the island, now looks like a wasteland, a ghost town, a mere shell of its former glory. I note with interest the attempt for the government, and I commend the minister, to try to create excitement in the square. But while he is doing it, businesses are closing left, right, and center, and the hemorrhage continues. Grand Bahama is in crisis mode. Madam President, the economy of Grand Bahama is now stagnant under this administration, and thousands continue to struggle to make ends meet and can barely afford grocery at the end of the week. Long-standing businesses that have been symbols of hope in our community are closing their doors. I know. I have been in business in Grand Bahama for many years, and I too am feeling the pain as a result of what is happening on the island. We are in crisis mode. I want to say it again. We are in crisis mode, and the government have no time to waste. You must act now. Madam President, during the 2017 general election campaign, the F&M painted a picture of Grand Bahama as doom and gloom under the PLP. And for months, you ravaged and round Grand Bahama week after week, saying it's the people's time. Today, however, the cries are loud and clear from residents that indeed realize that nothing is happening under Thompson, Turnquest, and Pintard and the Free National Movement. And as a result, many more people on Grand Bahama are jobless, and many are quickly becoming more homeless. Madam President, a prominent attorney on the island of Grand Bahama in an article about the state of affairs for Grand Bahama Island indicated, if we are not able to turn things around in the next few months on Grand Bahama, the damage will be so severe that it will be virtually impossible for the island to rebound over the next 10 years. This is crisis mode. It's not politics that I'm here to play today. I'm speaking as a resident of Grand Bahama to indicate to the members opposite that we must act now and begin to implement our short-term strategy plan for the restoration of Grand Bahama. Madam President, this administration must stop making excuses. All ministers must revisit their budget lines and find spending room for the people in our communities. We have 3 ministers around the table for the island of Grand Bahama. I admonish you to fight for a piece of the pie for our people. Madam President, as a former minister of the government, I sat around the table when the cupboards was bare as well. And the pressures coming down on the cabinet from the raiding industries, I know very well. Yet the former minister, Wilstrom, and I fought for Grand Bahama to get our share of the pie. All governments in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas still have this Nassau-centric ideology and have a tendency to forget about the family islands in Grand Bahama. Ministers from Grand Bahama, fight for your people and make sure that when they cut the pie around the table, you get the piece for Grand Bahama. Madam President, the people of Grand Bahama is in need of immediate relief because we are in crisis mode. Although we understand that the economic challenges of the island are not a direct result all to the Free National Movement, and some are not to be blamed by the government at all. We expect this administration to deliver for the people of Grand Bahama. The people of Grand Bahama are not simple, you know. We're not simple. We do not expect immediate solution to every problem, but we do expect immediate action to the people's concern. Madam President, I have read the F&M's promises for Grand Bahama outlined in your manifesto. I have one. I do have one. And we wish to make some suggestions to address what you can do in this immediate crisis before I take my seat. I would love to. As a business person, I would love to make some suggestions while I'm on my feet. Firstly, there should be a waiver placed on all government business license fees for businesses in East and West Grand Bahama to support the duty-free concessions in place by the former administration, and sit with the Grand Bahama Port Authority to ask them to follow suit. This does not require the government finding resources. This is just a matter of decision that can take place in cabinet, and we can begin to get some working room. Secondly, Madam President, the Hurricane Home Repair Program and the social service relief effort should be beefed up. The people are hurting. Give us some more leverage to lift those who are unemployed and the indigents and all those people who need relief, lift them up. And find a way to increase the subvention for food for the people of Grand Bahama. Thirdly, Madam President, there should be immediate capitalization, as the Minister of State in the Ministry for Grand Bahama said, to start the entrepreneurial program. We can't wait. Put the money there right away. Bang! And let's move. Allow the program to be managed locally along with the Chamber of Commerce, Venture Capital Group Fund, as well as individuals in the business community who understand business. All grants, I believe, should be processed locally through the Office of the Prime Minister, along with a small team of business leaders from the private sector. Additionally, Madam President, grant funding and low-interest loans should be given to those businesses that were severely impacted by Hurricane Matthew. This is the primer that we need now to save the SMEs. We need to inject capital into the community. I can remember I read a report post-Hurricane Jean and Francis, where they clearly indicated that it will take Grand Bahama somewhere between 10 to 12 years to recover. The government at that time pumped money to try to bring and to restore homes, but we made an error. We did not prime the local economy by pumping resources or low-interest loan facilities for small and medium-sized businesses. Further, Madam President, the Ministry of Tourism must work closely. I'm talking about real close now, not from a distance. Come into Grand Bahama, address the issues with property owners, the local promotion board, to solidify a workable, marketable plan that will promote tourism activity for Grand Bahama and push to get the smaller operators on the island business back into the community. I note with interest that the Minister for Grand Bahama, who is under a lot of pressure, I've been there, I failed the pressure. My heart go out to him. I don't have nothing against him. But the reality is, when the celebration left Grand Bahama, we should have moved immediately to find an alternative carrier to bring tourism back onto the island. But finally, a program was worked out where the carrier from Bimini is now coming, I think, on October the 25th to replace what the celebration is doing. And I believe that that may help to try to bring some more people to the island. Finally, the new promotion board for Grand Bahama needs to be established before the end of the month. We got to move. We need to get on the road, and we need to try to bring direct foreign investors into the island. I've been on the road with the Grand Bahama Port Authority. I've been throughout the world trying to bring business to Grand Bahama. We know exactly what we need to do. We know the reforms that must take place in the free trade zone. We know what we need to do. And we only now need to begin to put the right hook on the line and throw the hook and go behind who we're looking to get. You clearly indicate that you want to turn Grand Bahama into a high-tech industrial hub. You know which fish you're trying to get. Bait your line and let's go around the world shopping for these individuals. Madam President, there are so many other things that should have been done to bring immediate relief to the people of Grand Bahama, but this administration opted to take a break for 5 months in the middle of a crisis. The reality, however, is that this administration is lost out to sea. I have a right to speak what I want.
Point of order.
I have a right to speak what I want in here. You're lost out to sea. You only ain't bring nothing to this house in 5 months.
Madam Vice
except
President.
Money bills.
Point of order. The Speaker is misleading the Senate. The Free National Movement administration did not take a break. The House was suspended over the summer, but the government was actively working for that whole time. So it is untrue to say that the government took a break for 5 months.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I would withdraw that statement. I withdraw that statement. You did not activate a legislative agenda. Let me finish, man. Let me finish, AG. You can have a chance. Let me finish. I can sit down after I talk so you can respond. You did not activate a proper legislative agenda in this House. In this chamber, the upper and the lower chamber. Nothing, no legislation has been passed since you took over the wheel. I clearly indicated to you when we had the wheel in 2012 in May to October this time, we passed 14 bills. You could go check it, man. That's gospel. I went down your stairs a while ago and checked it. We did 21 first readings. Thanks to the late Dr. Bernard Nottage, who led our charge in the other place. God rest his soul. Madam President, there are so many things that could have been done to bring immediate relief to the people of Grand Bahama, but the government is dragging its feet. The reality, however, is that this administration is somewhere out there and so overwhelmed with the realities of governance that they fail to comprehend the urgency of the challenges we face on Grand Bahama. We are in a crisis. We are in a crisis. We're not just in trouble, we are in a crisis. And when you're in crisis, we must move now. Yet in the middle of this crisis, there's indeed hope. I find hope in the thousands of Grand Bahamians who are now uniting under the call, Fix Grand Bahama, not me. The record would reflect that I am not involved. I am a business owner in the Grand Bahama community who is feeling the punch, and I'm standing on my feet not only as a senator in this honorable place, but as a business person who has been severely impacted from the crisis that presently exists in Grand Bahama. I encourage this administration to move and move now. I am begging senators in this honorable place to move and move now with this crisis. Overall, Madam President, this speech from the throne was eloquently presented by Her Excellency, but as far as I'm concerned, offers nothing except fancy words on shiny paper that need to be put into action. Madam President, I certainly want to see the government and the country succeed. And as a Bahamian, I am prepared to put my political agenda aside and work right now, after I voice my opinion, put my political agenda aside and work with my brothers and sisters and stakeholders in the Grand Bahama community on behalf of the many businesses that are suffering in our community to try to bring positive change. Finally, Madam President, I want to once again thank Her Excellency. I happen to be a great admirer of her. I like her as a person. I like her heart. I've worked closely with her. And I believe that she has a lot more to offer to this country. Thank you, and God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Madam President, if I may, Madam Vice President, if I may respond to a few points. First, no. Strike while iron hot. Madam President, there's an old saying, you know, that the pot shouldn't call the kettle black. No, I'm only going to say this, that within weeks of the creation of the Ministry of Grand Bahama in 2007, every known FNM supporter in what then, prior to that, was the office of the Prime Minister in Grand Bahama was gone. Start with Lady Naomi, Wallace Whitfield. start with Kathy Lang
No.
and a host of other people. Now, I'm not accusing anybody of victimizing anybody.
Yes, you are.
I'm giving you the facts.
Madam President.
I merely say,
Madam
Chair,
Madam Chair,
that those
the
are
member-
facts,
The
untraveled
member
facts,
is doing
absolutely
exactly what he asked me
unquestionable
what not to
facts.
do. No.
I didn't say you did.
No. AG, you must pull that back. That's not right. Come on,
Thank
man.
you.
You're an honorable man.
And as an honorable man, I point no finger at you,
No, you said
but I
as
say,
minister.
as a matter of fact,
You
no.
said as minister.
I said within weeks of the formation of the ministry
You said minister.
in Grand Bahama,
said
all
minister.
the known FNMs previously in the office of Prime Minister were gone.
No.
Gone. And I named two. And there's a host of others. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, they just decided, my God, we must evacuate immediately, unceremoniously, because you've amalgamated two offices. Please. That's the reality. But I don't question, the need for the principle, generally speaking, that governments have to order their affairs. But I only point out the very strange circumstance that every FNM in Freeport knows who was there and how they came to leave, even if the minister doesn't. The minister also asked about the lack of a plan. The plan has been enunciated here by Minister Kwesi Thompson. It's been enunciated below. The first problem that we have had is to stop the bleeding. The PLP left Freeport not on the gurney. They left it in the intensive care unit on life support and support what heart pacemaker and the artificial heart and everything else. The fact of the matter is that the first part of the plan, I'm giving you the plan, you say you haven't heard it, is to stem the bleeding, the arterial bleeding. You have three main hotels in Port Lukaya, the Lukaya hotels, closed down since October last year, and the PLP didn't even have a deal to close. The Free National Movement, this government had the courage to say, we will not allow the PLP mistake, the same mistake they made in 2005 when they left the Princess
Senator
Tower to rot.
Bethel.
We were not allowing that to happen again to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and to Freeport, Grand Bahama. We would not allow the PLP decision in 2005 to allow the Princess Towers to fall to rack and ruin to be repeated. The PLP was sitting back and had nothing to do to get our Lukaya, no plan to get our Lukaya together. That is not so, sir. In 2005, the hurricanes decimated the Princess Towers. The people in 2005, it was the Perry Christie government. Get your facts right, okay? The point is, we were determined that we were not going to allow that historic PLP mistake to be repeated. We decided we'd violate our principles, our fundamental principle of commitment, of understanding that the tourism sector is best driven by private sector interests. We sold all the Pinling era government hotels when we came in 1992. But to save Freeport, we said we would violate our principle and we would go back to basics and we would exercise the right of the government to show that it had a real stake in the future of Freeport and skin in the game in the hotel development and tourism development in Freeport. And it is coming. It is coming. We have the elements of Senator Darville. I want to try and have a reasoned discussion with you. You are standing up claiming ignorance of facts. I am now giving you the facts. You are screeching and hollering and trying to stop the Bahamian people from hearing the facts. I would like you to calm down so the Bahamian people could hear the facts. We have arrived at a situation where we have the elements of a deal that everybody is agreeing to. We are moving to the next stage, and I can assure you and every Bahamian that once the purchase agreement is settled and finalized, all necessary contractual documents, as have historically been done by this government, will be tabled in Parliament.
Thank you.
Okay? That's the first point. That's the first element of the plan. The second element of the plan. No, but you asked a question.
No,
I can take long on this one. I'm not going to give you the full answer, just give you the plan.
Please let him,
want the
Senator
plan.
Darwell, please allow him to finish.
If you stop arguing with me, I give you the plan quicker. It'll go easier.
You're debating, man.
You know, you say you didn't see a plan. I'm giving you the plan for Freeport.
I want you to table the plan.
The second
Don't talk.
aspect of the plan, ministers have spoken on this matter from
I
Freeport.
want you to table the plan,
and you
man.
still ain't hear nothing. So I'm going to maybe you're
I
slow
heard
of
about
hearing,
Shark Tank.
and I can speak slow so you would understand fully. The second part of the plan is for the development of a destination concept. Freeport has been blighted for a long time. It does not have, and it is acknowledged in the tourism sector not to have a tourism identity, something that is like a means of attracting tourists, just to the idea, a destination identity. Freeport is devastated by the lack of appropriate airlift from the what do you call regular commercial airlines, the major ones. Ain't no hotel open, and you all sat around for 6 months while they were closed and did nothing. This is the problem. This is why you all got unanimously booted out of Freeport, from one end of the island to the next. Everybody said, get out as fast as you could. The third aspect of the plan. So we are working to develop a destination concept. There are plans afoot in the Port Lucaya area to assist in creation of a concept that will support the government's acquisition of the R. Lucaya properties and support the growth throughout of tourism and its rebirth in Freeport. That's the second plan. The third aspect is to attract new businesses. One of the things that you spoke about, and I'll deal with that in my wrap-up about the legislative process, but suffice it to say that we had to go back to the Port Authority and we had a whole series of negotiations because the PLP pass was so bad. So we now have an understanding and we have an agreement on the way forward. That will take some time to finalize, but at the end of the day, we want to have a mechanism where we can target businesses to go to Grand Bahama. The government is about to table legislation, probably next week, in all likelihood, that is designed and will be designed specifically to attract a host of new businesses that are not being offered in the Bahamas and done in the Bahamas at this time. And a large part of that is being targeted for Freeport, including, and in particular, arbitration services as a major development in this area. The last thing I want to say is that there was some errors in what you stated. No, there were some errors in what you stated. Yes, the fire station is not yet open, but the furnishings are in order to make it occupiable, and that will enable it to be open. Yes, and I'm just answering a few questions. It is denied that 70 persons were terminated from the shipyard between May and the present date, and by the Grand Bahama Shipyard Company. You say by who? That's a detail of Freeport that Freeport people can answer. I'm giving you the answers that I've gotten.
Withdraw that statement.
No, I'm informed that 70 persons were not terminated by the Grand Bahama Shipyard. Okay? Now, with regard to the apprentices, in fact, the list of apprentices' names have already been submitted, and I am instructed that some of them are already being engaged. So I think in terms of the specific points, those are the specific points that I thought I needed to answer at this point. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I just may, I promise you that I would not turn it into a debate.
Thank you, please.
I thank the honorable leader for clarifying some of the points and concerns that I had. One of the things that I'm concerned about is the fact that he has indicated, in the spirit of transparency, he decided to outlay a plan verbally in this honorable place. I'm asking on behalf of the people of Grand Bahama and all of us on this side, please table these concerns and operate in the spirit of transparency to inform us what is happening. You see, you have indicated that you're transparent. We can only comment based on information that is available to us. We are asking for information, and the business community of Grand Bahama needs to be informed of where the government is in the execution of their strategic crisis plan for the island of Grand Bahama.
Yeah, let me just say that I think you would bear in mind, first of all, I think we can both agree on the critical state of the Grand Bahama and particularly the Freeport economy. And where Freeport goes, the island of Grand Bahama goes.
The whole country goes.
And ultimately the country. I've often said, and I said to my colleagues many times, I tell the old story, the essence of which is this. One person in Bahamian politics, a general, once said to a leading politician for whom he was a general, in short this, you, sir, cannot be all you wish to be unless I am all that I can be. The Bahamas cannot be all that it wishes to be unless Freeport is all that it can be. And I've said that many times to my colleagues. In short, look, the reality is, when matters are urgent matters and critical matters and commercial matters are in the negotiation phase, the one thing you can't do is starting to talk details. First of all, because it's not all laid down, it's not all nailed down, it's not all agreed even in principle. It's only when these things are there and people are prepared to sign the bottom line that you can start to leak details or whatever. The fact is, there have been some very high-level, very complex negotiations towards this end. The government is acting as fast as it can in the best interests of the city, the economy, and most importantly, the people of Freeport and the island of Grand Bahama. I assure you, Minister, that former Minister and a member, Senator on the other side, that as soon as documents are able to be produced, the whole image and view and realities and legal relationships will be clear. And it will be done as soon as it can be done commercially in terms of having everything agreed. Thank you.
As many, the chair recognizes Senator Hall Watson.
We need to start again.
Madam Chair. Oh, sorry. Oh, you. I forgot. Sorry. Yeah. So when she said member as opposed to chair. Okay. Madam Chair, fellow senators, good afternoon. It is always an honor for me to speak in these hallowed chambers in the presence of my fellow honorable senators. As we speak on our government's agenda and the process we will use to achieve them, we must thank the Governor General, Her Excellency Dame Margaret Pindling, for the excellent and gracious manner in which our government's agenda was presented to the nation at the opening of Parliament. As I go forward with this contribution, I'm somewhat perturbed and in the manner in which the most recent contribution was conducted. I would first like, as a result of that, I would like to make some comments regarding our relationships to each other in this honorable chamber. it is quite likely that we will have reasons to have interactions with each other in this place probably for the next several years. I would like to think that as we debate our differences in methodology, in process, and in performance and beliefs, we can make the effort to be civil to each other and see the Christ in each other and our good character, which Senator Jasmine Darius spoke about so eloquently yesterday. One of the purposes of the opposition, of course, is to debate the ideas, plans, and agenda of the government, and to make the government senators appear to be unsure of their government's agenda. Maybe that is what is supposed to happen. But I think we can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. A major topic yesterday was, why hasn't the government corrected all of the problems and issues that has arisen in the country over the past 5 years? When one is dealing with the lives and fortunes of over 350,000 people who want many things to satisfy their personal agenda and desires it, it is always a major challenge to be able to do this in several years, which is why I think the results of the last election was very clear. What the people wanted was not delivered in 5 years. However, it seems that as a result of the previous administration not being able to deliver, something magical has happened. And all of a sudden, these things can all be delivered in 5 months. So I find that a bit disconcerting, that what couldn't be done in 5 years by one group of people, that same group of people now have the expectations that those things can be done in 5 months. That's magical thinking. When you see a situation where the votes that eliminated the previous government, inclusive of a sitting prime minister, it was clearly demonstrated that they did not feel the government in 5 years had not done what they wanted. We all know that Grand Bahama's current condition did not begin on May 10th, 2017, and therefore an evaluation and correction of what needs to be done to turn it around cannot be done in 5 months. Our honorable senator from Grand Bahama clearly indicates that he is a business person. There are many, many instances in which business deals sometimes take years. So when we are dealing with human lives and how to improve it in a situation where, for whatever our current status is, the government is primarily centralized, it is very difficult to do all of the things we know needs to be done, must be done, and will be done. But with the expectation of it being done in 5 years, I think is political grandstanding. As a member, I think our minister from Grand Bahama clearly outlined in his contribution yesterday, but it didn't seem to make a difference today. All of a sudden, he said nothing, he has no plans. But thanks to our leader in the Senate, he was able to rectify and correct a lot of what was said. As a member country that has a relationship with the IMF, we may be obligated to listen to their country evaluation, but surely not obligated to follow all recommendations. So I feel, in my opinion, it is truly foolish to look at recommendations from this body, which may not be to our benefit, and try and beat the government with those recommendations. While they may recommend it, we can choose or choose not to follow their recommendations. As a sovereign nation, we are aware of our culture, we are aware of our needs, we are aware of what our people need. They are doing their job. That is what they are mandated to do. Because they are so mandated does not mean that it works for every country with whom they may have a relationship. And so I think we need to be a little bit more concerned about the fact that we throw aspersions because it's a good political thing to do. And I also think that we are here because we have the ability to discern. And with that ability present, to simply make statements, and then at the end of the statements we simply say, in my opinion. I think all of us have had an education at a certain level where it's very clear we can discern what it is that is being done. However, I would like primarily to speak on what is closest to my heart. This is an issue that has been a part of my life for almost all of my life, and that is the health care of our people and how governments can contribute to this. At the tender age of 6, when I can recall first verbalizing that I wanted to go into medicine, I had no true vision of what that entailed or what it would take to get there. As a 6-year-old, we still think very fancifully. So something comes to mind, you say it, and it happens. But we all know life is not like that. I was a little girl living through a corner off East Street, near Collins Wall and East Street itself, and I think that speaks for itself. You weren't near the end where you can really get out into what was happening in the real world. You were way up through the corner next to Collins Wall. However, I was extremely fortunate in that I had committed parents, many family members and friends who were an integral support in me achieving my dream. I have also been fortunate in choosing a specialty where I have been blessed in participating in playing a role in bringing thousands of babies into the world, little people. And as a segue into what the United Nations defines health as we bring all these little ones into the world, it is not just feeling good. It's a state of complete physical, social, emotional, sexual, and psychological well-being. And I think sometimes when you're not in the field of health, you simply think of someone being ill that particular point in time. That is not what we're talking about when we're talking about health. Universal health insurance, if properly implemented, can be the method by which the Bahamas can achieve this health goal of ensuring that individuals in our nation are healthy in a global sense, not I don't happen to have a pain today. Okay? Madam Chair, one of the United Nations Millennium Goals of the period which ended in 2015 of reducing our infant mortality rate to single digits, we were not able to achieve. This rate, at the time that Millennium Goal came to an end, we had an infant mortality rate of about 17. The goal was to bring our infant mortality rate to single digits. With ours being 17, obviously that was not achieved. The lowest that we have been in this country since records have been kept was 12%, and that was under the second Ingram administration. Up to that point, we're somewhere now, to answer a question that was asked, between 18 and 23 over the past 4 years. So we have not done better in the last 5 years. It will be interesting to see if we are able to meet the first 3 requests of the current Millennium Goals, which ends in 2030. They simply ask that we eliminate poverty, end hunger, and ensure healthy lives for all of our citizens. Madam Chair, we also know that greater than 70% of the world's poor are women and children. And poverty and poor health go hand in hand. So we are looking at the bulwark of our nation are the individuals who are less healthy, poorer, and really being challenged by many health issues. This is something that we must fix. We must find an efficient way to marry good health with a good health system which caters to the whole patient. We cannot afford to spend millions of dollars to establish a good health system without investing in people. It doesn't matter how much money we spend and say we have universal health insurance when we are not working one-on-one with individuals. Individuals must learn to manage their own body, and if a breakdown occurs, then the health sector steps in. One of the items that is written in the plan as currently existing is that the physician is responsible for the patient's health. Absolutely no way. The physician is responsible for taking that patient, hopefully, back to good health after their lifestyles, their attitudes, and their negativity towards their health has deteriorated. One cannot be responsible, no government. And so that is one of the things that is currently being reviewed to be removed. The physician cannot be held responsible for anyone else's health. It is not good enough to just provide health care for a headache, but not the oncoming stroke, which the headache is the first symptom of. We have a patient who has a headache. The patient goes to a primary care physician. The patient gets Tylenol or whatever. But if that patient ends up with a stroke and has to go to Princess Margaret, National Health Insurance does not kick in. So we need to be able to marry primary care and how do we manage that patient once a catastrophe occurs. We have a similar situation, and I think most of us are aware of this. Everybody in the Bahamas has gas. Anything that happens, you have gas. But we will treat the gas, but we're not prepared to deal with the imminent heart attack that this pain is signifying. Yes. Okay? So we must be able to not in the second stage, not in the third stage, as the current plan outlines. We need to be able to marry the two things now so that people get real health care. Most people, if it's a real headache, can take care of their own headache. We don't need national health insurance for a regular headache, okay? Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't seek health care, because it might be a precursor to something else going on, as I previously stated. But when that headache comes, or that gas pain comes, and we get a negative sequelae of those things, national insurance needs to kick in. At this point in time, it does not cover hospital services. Okay? And that needs to be looked at and corrected. Else we're really not, particularly when we have no defined educational component in the current plan.
Point of order is the rule number 31 clearly indicates that a member, I happen to be one of those who are part of the National Health Insurance Plan. And in the plan, there is a mechanism in place that will assist those individuals who arrive at the primary health care facility, who have the ability to see a physician, to work up all of the necessary medical procedures to identify what the symptom of the headache may be and execute services that will definitely prevent a catastrophic stroke. So when someone comes to the primary healthcare physician, the primary healthcare physician must activate a strategic strategy, a protocol that will definitely determine where and how the headache has come about. Is it a medical emergency that requires emergency room services? If it requires emergency room services, what are the protocols to access those services? The implementation of a selective catastrophic care program was supposed to be concurrent with the program. If the new administration opt not to go with the recommendation of our consultants, that is different. But the plan that we were proposing clearly outlined what the steps should be and how the patient will be able to access these services, particularly on an emergency level, to be able to access immediately elements of the catastrophic care plan that was supposed to run concurrent with the launch of universal primary health care.
Now, I don't know how the plan is being implemented in Grand Bahama, but being an active part of our healthcare services here, that may be in the plan. What's in the plan doesn't help Grandma. What helps Grandma is that her headache is properly recognized, diagnosed, and treated. I will admit there are availability of certain lab tests which the patient can be sent to the lab to do. However, a caveat to all that is primary healthcare physicians, based on their current submissions for financial reimbursement, is exceeding, and I will not quote the number, but tens of thousands of dollars per month. If you are presenting billings for tens of thousands of dollars a month, common sense as a caring physician tells you, if you are doing primary care and you can bill tens of thousands of dollars, you're seeing a significant number of patients. And if you are seeing that many patients, we're not concerned with how your follow-up is, because the next patient is outside the door. You're concerned with, Grandma, take this. This will deal with your headache. Because patient number 3 to number 30 is sitting in the waiting room and I have to clear the waiting room. Okay? This isn't something that's new to me. I was in the United States when Medicaid started. And the exact same thing occurred. They billed for millions of dollars and then they went to jail.
It's fraud.
Exactly.
So you have a clause for medical fraud.
Okay?
It's in there.
And so, but while we go through the clauses for medical fraud, people are dying or becoming compromised in their health. And that is the concern that I have. We pay for routine, low-risk pregnancy care, but not high risk. And so babies are born in many instances where appropriate intervention by a specialist may have been given certain types of treatment and avoid weeks of a sick, damaged, or premature infant spending time in the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit, which costs us thousands of dollars per day. Okay? We need to put in there, and I am totally aware of this because I do it every day, funds for education.
That's it. Very important.
Okay? But where is it being done? Have you seen a poster? A PSA? Have you read it anywhere?
Only activate the plan.
But the plan was inactivated under the previous administration.
No. But point of order, and I don't mean to disrupt the member. It's the same rule, 31. I don't mean to be rude because I don't want to get into the substantive contribution. I want the member to be able to speak. But you're misleading the House. I happen to know fully what is happening with National Health Insurance, Honorable Doctor. And I want to say unequivocally that the plans that are affiliated with the things that you're concerned about are embedded in the plan. I would love to go through it and be able to bring some of the documents that clearly outline the policy paper associated with National Health Insurance and how we were supposed to look at a simple pregnancy versus the complicated pregnancy where specialists who, and some OBGYN wanted to be a part of the primary health care network as well. How it would be executed, how you will be able to tap into those resources to execute this specialized care. It is all grafted and drafted in the plan that has been guided from the consultants who have guided us through the entire process, along with our technical staff from the Princess Margaret Hospital and the Rand Memorial Hospital. I would love to go through it. I don't mean to be rude. I wouldn't say anything.
Honorable member, I don't see what you're doing right now is rude, so please feel free to make your comments as you see is necessary. However, what is embedded in a plan does not necessarily mean that's what happens every day on the street. I am in Princess Margaret Hospital, so I know what is going on. So I think the intentions of the government when the plan was written may have been excellent. These things were put on paper. The question is, are they working? Okay? When we look at the number of these babies that we're having, we need to be aware that the quality and survival of these infants is one of the parameters in which we are rated as a country by WHO. So when we do not do everything that we can, not only for international statistics, but for our citizens, then we're not doing what we should be doing as a government, whether it's the previous administration or whether it is ours. We have to look at what is happening in the countries around us. Cuba, of course, is 4.2. And we're 18, 19, 20. Barbados is 11. The United States is 6. Okay? So that is the question we must ask ourselves. What are we doing? And so we need to make a concerted effort to look at the rates that we're achieving, and we look at what's going on around us economically, where there's a Mercedes-Benz or a whatever in so many garages, and we are not engaging the public, be they members involved in this instance or not. We must improve the lives of these babies. I feel it's a fundamental flaw in the current health system where mothers and babies that are most vulnerable are not given the highest priorities. And this must change. In his contribution to Parliament, it is noteworthy that the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Dwayne Sands, is aware of this and has established a committee of all of the technocrats and planning experts to create a different scenario that will mandate the improvement of care of these individuals at the appropriate levels. And as we continue to work on Millennium Goals to reduce our infant mortality to single digits, the government will enforce new changes in addition to strengthening the health system services, which will take time and significant resources, keeping in mind that many other areas are competing for these same resources. Some of these health strengthening processes are extending current clinic hours, building more clinics, but we should note that it took the last administration 5 years, not 5 months, to open clinics that were already built before they took office. But we should be able to do everything we need to do in the country in 5 months. And it took them 5 years to open an already built clinic. We need to be sure that there are continual repairs to all of our clinics and hospitals, and most importantly, maintaining and performing early repair of all equipment. It makes no sense to spend $1 million for a piece of equipment, decide the service contract of $10,000 is too expensive, but in 2 years, your $2 million are gone because we did not service the equipment. That must change. We need to train Bahamians and replace the non-Bahamian biotechs who currently populate our institutions. Ensure that public and private practitioners are held to the same standards of performance, because as we are now aware, that as far as the quality of the facility that is expected in the private sector is not expected in the public sector, where the bulk of our people receive their health care. That must change. These are only a few of the things that must be put in place for NHI to be successful and sustainable. It is, however, in its current structure, not headed for success. I will not speculate as to why the former administration was in such a hurry to implement the program that contravened its legal structure. Because the legal structure clearly states that there needs to be an authority with a board who will make sure that the guidelines of having NHI put in place as a service was done.
Madam President, that's the same point, misleading this honorable chamber. The legislation, the national health insurance legislation, clearly outlines that the minister responsible for national health insurance had the ability and the authority legally to go ahead and implement both phase 1 and phase 2 of the plan, which is the registration plan phase, before the forming of the board. We got a legal opinion on that. It is record. It's there to speak for itself. And the reality was that the board itself, we wanted, in the event that we were able to be successful in the general election, we wanted to name the board so that there would be no backlash with the fact that the board may have been politically put together. So the legal framework is clearly outlined by the legal opinion that the minister responsible for national health insurance did not operate outside of the legal parameters of the legislation. That is clear.
Thank you. Thank you. May I just make one point? Since you are falling on the sword of a legal opinion. Of making many opinions, there is no end, and much study is a weariness unto the spirit.
True.
Okay? The point I wish to make about legal opinions is it depends often on who the client is, what opinion the lawyer gives. When the client change, the opinion different. It is not misleading for the honorable senator to express a different view of what occurred. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. As has been stated on several occasions, we talk about what is in the document. My concerns are centered around what happened to the people who this document is supposed to be helping. NHI, as a clinical entity, began in April as far as provision of services. This was approximately 3 weeks at the most before the general election. Of course, the legislation and all of that may be on paper, but without the authority to oversee what the clinical parameters were for being billed, to determine whether all of this was done properly. There was no electronic medical system in place to follow. There had been no training in the codes that are used in order to define, is this service related to what? Then the fact that the minister may have had the authority was of very little consequence to what happened not only to patients, but government funds. That is the most important feature. It doesn't matter to me whether the minister had the authority or not. What matters to me is, are there guidelines and structures in place to determine, number one, that the patient is being treated appropriately and that the people's money is being spent appropriately. And as I've said before, as it has been outlined, one of the most important components of this program must be patient education in a tangible way. I think all of us know, even if only anecdotally, that it will take repetition for something to be embedded in individuals' mind and for them to then follow through and do it. The fact that it's in the bill is of no consequence. Because if I were to ask the question right now, of the minds that sit around this table, the question is, how many in here has read the bill? Okay? So, being in the bill is of no consequence to the general public. To Mary, who is 8 weeks pregnant and needs to find a doctor, what do I do? I'm a high-risk patient. Where do I go? Will I still get that care? And I will give you not an anecdote, but a reality. High-risk patient, previous pregnancy complications, first time, second pregnancy, elderly lady, and we call anybody over the age of 35 elderly pregnant. And that's in the tax. But we know that 42, 43-year-old women have babies who are perfectly fine. And she is having a weakening of her cervix. She now must go from your office to the hospital. Once that decision is taken, she goes to the hospital and sees who she sees. Because she is no longer now going to be reimbursed. No reimbursement is going to go to any physician for continuing to take care of her. But she is now attached. How do you tell this patient, well, I'm so sorry, but if I continue to take care of you with this complication, because you have to go to the hospital, you must now pay. And that is why it is paramount that we put a system in place now, which the government intends to do, so that when things turn from A to B, the patient is still protected. And the individuals who make these decisions, that this is how this is to be, have never been in situations like that. Number one, because your money and my money cover their health insurance through the government paying for their coverage. So they never need to be concerned. All right? So that is important. The program, unless these changes are made, which we intend to do, the program cannot be sustained in its current form. Patient responsibility, patient education must be an integral part of it and enacted and pushed and be sustainable. Writing it in the bill means nothing to John Q. Public. I am aware, as I stated, that stages 2 and 3, those items may be added. But we also know that we've been talking about NHI for a long time, from 1999. And, well, it has come up. Substantive conversation. Okay? And in their 2002-2007 administration, the PLP attempted to establish it, but it has just now come to fruition at the end of their most recent administration. So if we're going to wait to really take care of people until we get to phases 2 and 3, that could be another 15, 17 years. Grandma's going to be long dead. So we can't. It must be done now. We must put the critical care component into the current program. Recently, the Food and Agricultural Organization, in conjunction with FAHO, has indicated that by 2013, obesity, and we know where we stand in the world on that, is one of the major health challenges that is negatively impacting the Caribbean and the Americas. We also know that it is the forerunner of the major non-infectious chronic illnesses that we see today, especially the cardiovascular and kidney diseases, heart attack, stroke, and diabetes. Something which is chronic and out of control in our communities. We now have 40-year-olds on dialysis because of lifestyle. I had a colleague recently. She was fortunate enough to get a renal transplant, a kidney transplant. But the majority of our people cannot do that, and the service is not provided in the Bahamas. So we must do better. Based on our current statistics, unless drastically changed, we will be number one in the region in the negative impacts of obesity. We know that it is something that one has to do as an individual. But a government who is concerned about its citizens must put programs in place to assist them. When we talk about, see, there are spin-offs to everything. When we talk about issues that, and we look at the risk to mother and children, we find ourselves with women who receive minimal or no prenatal care. And it's difficult to think that in today's world, we're going to have women who do not see a doctor at all during the pregnancy. But it happens. Because nobody is in their face every day saying, you have to go. Now, I must admit that we do have some of our community nurses who do an excellent job at tracing defectives, but it's not enough. We have the principal of the PACE school who, goes out into various neighborhoods and corral young women who are teen pregnant mothers and take them to clinic. But that's the isolated incidents. The government's responsibility, and by the way, it is the PACE program, which is primarily run and operated by the PACE Foundation, and I'm happy to say that I am the current vice president and have been working with them for many, many years, that the government has been helpful in a subvention that they give us every year, but it's not enough, because basically what we're running is a government school. It's just that the students are pregnant teens. Okay? We need to find a way to get these people convinced that pregnancy care is vital. When a lot of these women receive minimal prenatal care, not because of lack of accessibility, but due to lack of education, this may well result in the birth of many infants who may be born with physical, mental, or emotional challenges, but they appear quite normal. Some of these children, as a result, may fall, particularly on the autism spectrum, and go undiagnosed. They become, through no fault of their own, the child with the classroom behavioral problems, because they have challenges which makes it very difficult for them to sit in a class and be taught in the traditional way. We have no real public modality to evaluate these children. The child develops learning disabilities, and so they get age promotion. And at a certain level, they fall into negative lifestyle patterns, which may result in criminality. So it's a process that goes beyond whether or not we choose not to give adequate and appropriate health care. And that is why when the World Health Organization states that it is not only physical health, it's emotional, it's psychological. That's what health truly is about, okay? And so we must have a system which must be properly monitored financially and clinically, with proper, appropriate oversight and the capacity to avoid or make attempts to avoid another negative problem in our society. And so, Madam Chair and fellow senators, with all the discussions that we have had over the past 2 days, I think the government is on the right track in focusing on health issues, particularly national health insurance and universal health, and the changes we will introduce to the current legislation that's in place. Thank you. As many?
Thank you. Good afternoon, fellow senators. Madam Vice President, I rise today to thank our Governor General, Her Excellency Dame Margaret Pinland, for our speech from the throne, and in her usual elegant and eloquent way, gave a wonderful speech outlining the people's government plan for this session in Parliament. Madam Vice President, it has been 5 short months since the Free National Movement was given an overwhelming mandate to govern the Bahamas. Our government, the people's government, is moving in the right direction. Maybe for some, not as fast as some people want them to, but nonetheless, they're moving in the right direction. Madam Vice President, sometimes I feel that we are living in a microwave society, whereby we want something done right away. We want something done instantly. But that's not the way our life is. We just cannot get something instantly like that. It takes time, and you need patience. So I'm asking all our Bahamian people just to have patience, because I know this government is moving in the right direction. We are being focused, we are being serious, we're being deliberate in our actions. And when we came into power 5 months ago, there was a lot of things that we had to clean up, and it takes time. And you know, Madam Vice President, some time ago, many years ago, when I was doing a course in economics, I had a professor who indicated to us that sometimes people think the economy is like a tap, a water tap, a spigot. We could just go and turn it on and off. But that's not the case. He gave us an analogy that is almost like a cruise ship and a dinghy, whereby if you're in a dinghy, all you do is with your paddle, just turn it around, and the dinghy turns around. And in those days, the cruise ships, when they were berthing and docking, they used tugboats. Nowadays, they use thrusters, and they don't have to use tugboats. So in those days, it takes many tugboats just to turn a cruise ship around. And that's how it is with the economy. It can take time, and we can need many, many tugboats to turn this cruise ship around. But we're going to get it done in time. And I'm quite certain that we are going to get that thing done in a short period of time. And many business deals, I think you mentioned it, or some other senators have mentioned it earlier, that business deals take time to become developed. It takes time to bring to fruition. And when you're talking about a business deal, one must take into account that assessment has to be done, research has to be done, but more importantly, funding has to be done. And you just can't go there and find that funding immediately like that. And it takes time to get the funding in place. Investors got to be sure that they have confidence in the people who are handling their money before anything is done. So, on that note, Madam Vice President, I'm just asking the Bahamian people and all of us to take time, have patience, because patience is a virtue. Madam Vice President, the resolve of this new government was tested immediately with Hurricane Irma hitting our shores and wreaking havoc on the southern Bahamas. especially Acklands and Ragged Island, which sustained the most damage. I felt for my brothers and sisters in Salina Point, Inagua, Crooked Island, Ragged Island, which had to be evacuated from their homes and stayed in shelters for weeks, and they are now just starting to rebuild their lives. Ragged Island, as we all know, was wiped out, and my heart goes out for those Bahamians for their loss. I have the utmost confidence in our Prime Minister and the government of the Bahamas that we will rebuild Ragged Island and we will make it a model island for sustainability. It will be and has given the government the opportunity to modernize that island, and in my opinion, as the Prime Minister said before, it will be the first smart island in this community, in this archipelago. And I think that we're going to use that as a blueprint for other communities and other islands to follow, because it's going to start off with solar energy, sustainable solar energy going forward. And even though there's not too many residents in Ragged Island, but probably there'll be the first small community, and everything will be high-tech and digital going forward. And I think that's soon going to come within a year's time, 2 years or 3 years' time. But I think by the end of our term, that'll be done. Madam Vice President, shortly after Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Mariah threatened the Bahamas, but by the grace of God, we were spared. Many of our friends to the south in the Eastern Caribbean was not as fortunate. Dominica and Puerto Rico were decimated. Many other countries sustained major damages, but both Irma and Maria, countries like Antigua and Barbuda, St. Thomas in U.S. Virgin Islands, and Tortuga in the British Virgin Islands. I believe that charity begins at home, and I'm confident we as the government will ensure our people in the southern Bahamas affected by the hurricane are given care, and in short order, things will return to normalcy. Madam Vice President, I am a firm believer in the saying that you are your brother's keeper. And when I heard the Prime Minister announce that the Bahamas will assist Dominica, I was proud of him and proud to be a Bahamian. I thought to myself, yes, Ragged Island and others were hit, but we must help those who are in greater need than us. While we must help ourselves, we too must help our fellow man, for it's the Christian thing to do. And if Irma had shifted a few degrees, I think, to the north, the entire Bahamas would have been devastated, and we would have been looking for the same type of help that we are now giving Dominica. I can remember when Hurricane Matthew impacted the Bahamas. Our neighboring countries came to our aid and assisted us in the building process. So it is only fitting and a Christian thing to do for us to help our fellow man in need. Madam Vice President, the government has made tremendous strides in moving the country forward, and I'm sure that over the next few months, many great things will be happening, and to make our Bahamas a better place for you and me and for our fellow countrymen. In our speech from the throne, Our Excellency, the Governor General, outlined an ambitious plan by this Free National Movement government to move the Bahamas forward. She stated that the rule of law is critical to the maintenance of the people's trust in the exercise of public authority. Therefore, the government has moved to and will be bringing, and I understand has brought legislation to establish an office of the Independent Director of Public Prosecution. With this going forward, a noli prosequi will now come under the Director of Public Prosecution. This is a good thing. Now we will have faith that when one is handed down, everyone knows that it's the law and not that is done in favor for family, friends, or lovers. With this and the introduction of the Bureau of Investigations to investigate matters which are referred to by the Auditor General, we bring more transparency and accountancy to the government and also in the public sector. While we never want to hear spending is curtailed or of budget cuts, I feel that is needed to bring back proper fiscal prudence to governing and to our fiscal spending. Madam Vice President, the Governor General, further stated in our speech that the government will establish a one-stop shop to improve the ease of doing business. And as someone who is involved with a small business, I was excited and very happy along with others to hear this good news. It is a known fact that it's a painstaking endeavor to do business in the Bahamas. The hassle of obtaining a business license is just an example of the frustrations that people feel. The process is just too long and frustrating. If we as a country are serious about getting more Bahamians to be entrepreneurs, we must remove the red tape and the high fees of establishing a business. With the government bringing back the Jump Start and Fresh Start programs, we must make sure it is easy and affordable for Bahamians to help with the growing and owning of this economy. And just let me say, Madam Vice President, that during the last 5 years or more, many small businesses face many economic and financial challenges, and many of them went under, but some are still feeling the burden of the economy of the effects of the economy of the last 5-10 years. And many of them have indicated that many of them have felt delinquent in getting their business license, national insurance, and other government programs going. But I think they need more time. I'm not saying that they shouldn't pay their tax. They must pay the tax. But I think they need some relief in trying to get a longer deferred payment of time, or the down payment they are expected to pay should be lessened or be a small amount than it is now. And I think that I hope that the government could give some preference to that and look at that as the small businessman would want to see that we are now trying to help the small businessman to get back on his feet after having many years of financial troubles and challenges. Along those same lines, Madam Vice President, we must find a way to make banking in this country a more pleasant experience. I find it appalling to have to pay a bank over $10, and I understand that the fees have gone up, and I find it appalling that they charge so much to use the ATM machine. And also these new and high fees the banks are charging is much, much too high for the average man to bear. As you know, several of the banks are downsizing and closing branches, but they're still increasing their fees. This cannot be right. And I call on the government, and I'm pleased to know that the minister who is responsible for consumer affairs, fellow Senator, the Honorable Dion Folks, is now leading an investigation into this. And I hope that within short order, he will be letting the public know what has transpired and how things could be made better for the consumers and the clients going into these banks. And while I'm on my feet and touching on that topic, as many of you know, I'm a senior citizen, and I go into banks quite often during the month. Many times, the lines are very long, very long. And I think it seems like the banks seem to have a fancy just to make sure that they get sometimes their jollies just like making sure that people are standing in lines for a very long time, okay? Sometimes for hours on end. And many times, you know, as a senior citizen, sometimes we have to make a call on Mother Nature. And sometimes you have to go to relieve yourself. And I hope I'm not saying anything that's inappropriate, but nevertheless, that is the facts. And I find that when I look around, I don't see no public restrooms for the general public. I'm not saying that there's none there, but the public, many times, the public doesn't know that. And so the other day, I had to cut my trip short and go to see Mother Nature. And I do hope that those involved with consumer affairs will bring this to the banks and see how that could, that the clients and the consumers of the banks know what's going on in the banks, okay? And I know that there's an element of security involved, but I'm quite certain the public should know where there's public restrooms in these banks, okay? Madam Vice President, the Prime Minister's dream of introducing a tax-free zone in the over-the-hill areas to encourage the growth of small businesses and spur job creation is most welcome. Operating these zones properly and safely will go a long way in growing the economy of the Bahamas and encourage many entrepreneurial ventures. This is necessary if the government is committed to the exploration and development of the untapped resources of the family islands and the promotion of the diversification of the tourist and banking industry. As most of you know, I'm an island boy, and when I see an heir of a murder on a family island, and for that matter, really right in Nassau and New Providence, and it saddens me a great deal. The government plan of zero tolerance for crime is much needed and wanted. We must curtail the scourge of crime and make the Bahamas safe again. And I am encouraged by the initiatives that was put forth by the Minister of National Security's crime plan just recently in the lower chambers. And I'm quite certain that we'll be seeing positive results from that in short order. We must enact more legislation and the soon to come legislation to establish a guns and gang unit to focus on the dismantling of gangs in this country and stopping the flow of guns in this country is most welcome. Madam Vice President, while the new legislation is needed and welcome, we still need better social programs to teach our young people how to deal with conflict resolution. We need programs to keep the young people interested in learning about the importance of life and that we are not playing games and that life is not just the movies, for this is the real thing. Madam Vice President, the Internet played a major role in the last general election. We need to emphasize the seriousness of the proper use of the Internet, and I applaud the government for the emphasis it will now put on the use and misuse of the Internet and the social media. In closing, Madam Vice President, I am encouraged by the plans outlined in the speech from the throne and excited about the future of the Bahamas under this people's government, led by our Prime Minister, the Honorable Hubert Minnis. We can look forward to great things happening for our country, and I look forward to businessmen having an easier time to conduct their business activities. I look forward to a safer Bahamas, a cleaner Bahamas, a modern Bahamas. I believe that under this free national movement government, we will see a much brighter future. Madam President, Madam Vice President, again, I express my thanks, sincere thanks to our Governor General for a speech from the throne. Thank you and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice President. Good afternoon, Senators. Good afternoon to people of the Bahamas watching today. Thank you. Madam Vice President, I wish to join in the chorus of our Senate colleagues as we express our sincere gratitude to Her Excellency, the esteemed and ever so stately Dame Marguerite Pinling, for her delivery of the speech from the throne with such eloquence, poise, and grace. As a young boy, I always sat with a school notepad and took notes whenever someone who had given their life to public service or who was giving their life to public service spoke. I find myself still doing that today. I did that during the speech from the throne. I did that for the last 2 days. I made notes because so many persons who have inspired me, I can see how much they have given of their life and time in service. And as a young boy, I admired Her Excellency, not because she was the wife of a great Bahamian that stood up to the government of the day, and not because she was the mother of a good friend of mine who surprised my wife and I on our wedding day with the most memorable live band performance by Visage. But I admired Her Excellency because she stood through all of the verbal and public ridicule that came from all facets of Bahamian society, and at times even from within. But she stood. Much like our current Prime Minister, who stood. A fate that many of us now endure or will endure as public figures and persons crazy enough to serve. It's a thankless job, but each of you do it because you love our country and our people, as does Her Excellency. And I thank you. We all owe a debt of gratitude to Her Excellency for standing for decades with such vigor and eloquence. Madam Vice President, to see the smile on Her Excellency's face plastered on the front page of the newspapers the day after I received my instruments of appointment was an interesting moment. And I don't mean to rub it in, Madam President, but out of all the persons that were sworn in or receiving their instruments, I was the only one that got that special smile. I was the only one that got that special smile. You got it too. I got the picture too. Madam President, we all appreciate that the speech from the throne sets the administration's agenda and mandate for the first of its 2 terms. At this rate, but I digress. With your indulgence, Madam Vice President, I wish to address just 4 issues that were foreshadowed in that memorable speech from the throne. And the 4 issues I wish to address today, Madam President, are local government in New Providence, the participation of civil society organizations, the magistrate court reform, and developing our family of islands. Madam Vice President and honorable senators, I'll begin with the latter. Senators Dossett, Senator Ferguson, and Senator Sweeting, Senator Thompson, I share your concerns and passion for our family islands. My father's from Inagua. My mother's parents, Moss and Joaquin, are from Acklands and Crooked Island. And I'm from East Street. Presently in Carmichael, close to Andros. At page 10 of the speech from the throne, it reads, and I quote, "My government is committed to the exploration and development of the untapped resources of the family islands. Consequently, my government will promote diversification in tourism and banking and promote more Bahamian ownership of these industries." Madam Vice President, honorable senators, there is absolutely nothing that the people of New Providence enjoy that is too good for the people of Inagua. There is nothing that the people of New Providence enjoy that is too good for the people of Crooked Island, Acklands, Cat Island, and Andros. I detest the reference, Madam Vice President, to our family islands as out islands. I detest that. It's as if they are less important than New Providence. And the Bahamas is not New Providence and Paradise Island. Successive administrations have been Nassau-centric and placed our people in the family islands on the back burner for decades. It is time to transition these islands and the mindset of our people on the family islands. We must see the potential in our people that choose to reside in the various family islands, and we must see the potential in those islands. When we speak of developing the resources, our people are one of the greatest resources we have in this country. And we must evolve from the mere settlement mentality. We must move these family islands to be sufficient towns and cities that have identified, packaged, and are ready to present their unique experiences to visitors and investors. I welcome this government's commitment to develop, diversify, and promote Bahamian ownership in our family islands, but this calls for innovative ideas from innovative people. And we must show Bahamians and the world that the Bahamas has 15 populated islands, each of which is able to provide visitors with an unforgettable, unique experience. Unique memories, and the best possible base for a regional or international business headquarters. Each with a focus not on a generic Bahamian experience, but a focus on unique experience that you can only have in Long Island, for example, the Blue Hole, on Cat Island with the Hermitage and Rake and Scrape, the swimming pigs and sharks and the Exumas, in Nagua, the salt pond and the donkey sightings, flamingo watching, Andros with crabbing, for instance. Each of our family islands has something unique. Persons are traveling the Caribbean via cruise ships every year to experience the difference of each of these islands. They go from the Bahamas and they leave us and they sail down to Jamaica and they sail over to Puerto Rico and they sail down the Caribbean because they're looking for different experiences. But our family islands right here, each offer a different, unique, memorable experience. Madam Vice President, someone has to lead the charge. And someone has to bring all these family island MPs and senators together to brainstorm and help us pump life and dignity back into our family islands. Someone has to offer short-term initiatives, and I join in with Senator Darville. We have to look at short-term initiatives as well as long-term, because the people in our family islands cannot wait 4 to 5 years. We have to come up with short-term initiatives, and we have to start running with them. I was hoping that the two other senators from Grand Bahama would have been present today, so that I can make eye contact with them and put some pressure on them to get the ball rolling after they get done with these great things in Grand Bahama that started today. But in the interim, Senator Knowles and Senator Darville, I have to encourage and inspire you to get our colleagues together that represent the family islands and come up with something that can be done for all of our family islands. Madam Vice President, Honorable Senators, last month I traveled to the Cayman Islands with my family, my entire family, wife and 2 little children, at my expense to do some final research on a family island cruise line proposal. In 2 weeks, public consultation will begin on that proposal. And some of the concerns from the public will be, what unique experience can each island offer? They'll be interested in sustainability. Where would the vessels dock? Person's going to want to know about feasibility. And how do we ensure Bahamian ownership of this new industry? For those of you that have visited the Cayman Islands before, you may know that they receive 1 million plus tourists every year by cruise ship. They don't have a modern dock as we have here at Prince George Wharf. In fact, these large cruise vessels that leave the Bahamas are the same cruise vessels and companies that you'd see docked in the Cayman Islands. But they dock out to sea, and the locals ferry these 1 million plus tourists from the cruise ships to the land. Local ferries. 1 million plus tourists per year. You know why 1 million plus tourists go to the Cayman Islands, leave a big cruise ship and get onto a small ferry to come to these islands? Because they're looking for a unique experience. And again, our family islands can offer that. Tourists want to make memories, and our family islands can offer great memories. And I'm offering a unique experience via small, privately owned Bahamian cruise lines, or cruise vessels owned by Bahamians yet again. Vessels that could sail from New Providence and Grand Bahama to Auckland's, Bimini, Cat Island, Inagua. Real destination experiences and tourism right from our family of islands. But truth be told, Madam Vice President, governments, Bahamian governments, must allow the final decision to be made by the people of these islands. When we think of local government and we think of the family islands, it has to be to a point where there's buy-in from the locals. That the locals on those various islands must see the need for these ventures. Again, Madam Vice President, while this may be a proposal I have, it is only one suggestion from one person, and nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. And I encourage Bahamians listening around the country to get involved with the public consultation and offer your ideas on what we can do. We have to get involved. Governance isn't going to be just relying on 1 or 2 ministers to come forward what is going to be best to boost this economy. Participatory governance means all of us getting involved doing our part, offering our ideas. I'm sure if we can get these Family Island MPs and senators together, along with the various members of the public that are interested, we can fulfill that promise from page 10 of the speech from the throne to diversify the tourism product and ensure Bahamian ownership. I turn now, Madam Vice President, to the second point, being that of local government. At page 11 in paragraph 2, it reads from the speech of the throne, "My government will establish a committee to look into the implementation of local government in New Providence." I would also hope that what was said at page 10 applies, and I quote, "My government will provide for a portion of the revenue collected by the district councils to be used to address local needs." 2 years ago, Madam Vice President, the Our Carmichael Community Initiative, organized by Giselle Bailey, Peggy Williams, a.k.a. Candace Scott, Jason Ferguson, Happy Carroll, Yasmin Allen Scott, Estina Saunders, Fenella Finderson, Katrina Farquharson, and many others, set out and proved that a group of concerned citizens in New Providence, with some financial backing, could make a difference in communities. And the Our Carmichael Initiative eventually received the Paul Harris Fellow last year award at Government House and a Bahamian High Court Award nomination. But in essence, Our Carmichael was the spark of local government for New Providence. It is now the template for local government in New Providence, but it's in need of funding and a policy-making power. Madam Vice President, Honorable Senators, an individual campaigns in our community of thousands every election season to be our representative in government and for our community. But once he or she becomes a member of parliament with the governing party, they also become a minister if they're unlucky. Because for me, seeing what ministers of government have to go through, I don't wish that on anybody. But nobody here envies the job of a minister. As we see, they're trying to juggle their constituency and they're trying to juggle a ministry. He or she, out of 30 days every month, tries to schedule 4 days in a month to spend an evening at the constituency office seeing thousands of people with their concerns. And there are people calling in to talk shows every day, and they've been doing it for years now, complaining that they're on waiting lists to see their MPs about issues urgent to them and their communities and their families. One MP trying to address the needs of thousands in New Providence in any constituency is near impossible. I've had the honor and pleasure, Madam President, Vice President, Honorable Senators, of proposing my views on local government for New Providence with the Office of the Prime Minister over the last 4 months. And I am happy to state that the first town hall meeting has been announced and will be hosted this week, Thursday, at the University of the Bahamas. It is time that concerned citizens in New Providence become empowered to develop and manage our communities via a council system made up of qualified residents that are adequately compensated on a full-time basis. Parliament cannot be the only avenue for our people to get involved with the development of our communities and our country. I turn now, Madam Vice President, to civil society. Madam Vice President, Honorable Senators, civil society exists, or the civil society organizations exist because some group of persons are passionate about issues that affect our country, our communities, or groups of people. Issues which are being swept under the rug. Many stand up for people that cannot stand up for themselves, and many offer advice to governments on international best practices. Having only been in activism since 2004, I still do not know how anyone takes so much abuse from the very same people they offer to help sometimes. I asked Senator Folks yesterday during the break, how do politicians do it? How do they give so much time of their lives to their countries, their people and communities, and at times the very same people you offer yourself to help beat you back? I've witnessed the members of FOAM, one of the civil society organizations, threatened by the very same people they're trying to help. Yet they keep trying to help. I've seen members of our Carmichael walk the streets door to door begging residents to get involved in their own communities. I've seen Citizens for Justice, We the People, REART, Waterkeepers, all Citizens for Better Bahamas, and the National Lead Institute offer advice to only be ignored for years. We March exists to ensure participatory governance, to give a voice to those that have been ignored or afraid to speak up for themselves. And those persons are not PLP, FNM, or DNAs. Those persons are Bahamians. And they're Bahamians who, regardless of which government is in power, it is still called the government of the Bahamas. And the energy of CSOs is high. And our voices got loud last November on Black Friday. And at page 3 of the speech from the throne, it reads, consequently, my government is fully committed to harnessing the energy of the Bahamian people and is determined to pursue policies that promote harmony and not division. It goes on, my government has therefore pledged to listen to the voice, aspirations, dreams, hopes, and desires of our people. And on behalf of civil society, we welcome this government's approach and efforts at participatory governance. We also wish to acknowledge the progress the government has made on several of our We March requests. I heard the AG call them the other day demands. And we are grateful to the government on its recent agreement to enact the Freedom of Information Act, to table whistleblowers legislation, and to introduce the Office of the Ombudsman. At page 3 of the speech from the throne, it speaks to the anti-corruption legislation that shall be tabled in a matter of days, term limits for the PM that we asked for, MP recall system for non-performing MPs that we asked for, and the independent director of public prosecutions that we also asked for. At page 9 of the speech, it speaks to improving the ease of doing business that we asked for, and I commend the Deputy Prime Minister for all that he and his team have been doing over the last few months on this break towards this endeavor, and I note Senator Sweeting's public support in this regard. Even though he's salty now on things he wasn't salty about prior to May 10th. Yes, sir. Savor the salt. Madam Vice President, I welcome the government's commitment, as mentioned in the speech from the throne, to address what I have phrased an indentured labor system for the leasing of taxi plates. In the interim, Madam Vice President, I should wish to urge the government to consider issuing tour car and livery plates, which are not the same as taxi plates as we know here. As these individual drivers or small business owners aren't lining up at hotels and the airports and taxi stands. These are persons who have pre-booked their customers or guests prior to these persons even leaving their countries to visit the Bahamas. They've booked a driver to take them around and tour them. But these drivers are suffering the same fate taxi drivers are suffering. They are leasing plates. They are leasing government plates from private individuals at $500 to $700 per month. And when these individuals make $1,500 per month, they're paying somebody, some private individual, $500 to $700 per month for that plate. Then they're paying the banks $500 for the loan that they got to purchase the vehicle. And they're taking home about $500 to $600 per month if they're lucky to their families. It has to be addressed by this government whose mandate is for change. Madam Vice President, at page 11 of the speech from the throne, it speaks to establishing local government in New Providence. Again, a realization that I have contributed to personally, and I thank the government for moving on this local government proposal. I take this opportunity to assure or reassure the Bahamian people that civil society organizations, these three consultative senators, and this leader of government business remain committed to agitating for progress on civil society concerns, and ultimately resolution or compromise. On participatory governance, I stand resolute. Just as the honorable members of Parliament for Yamacraw and South Beach remain committed to activism above and beyond their seats in the House of Assembly, just as the Honorable Senator Jasmine Darius remains committed to Christian values above and beyond politics and her Senate appointment, just as the Senators Dotson, Dorset, and Knowles remain committed above and beyond politics and their Senate appointments to Union, Women, and Family Island concerns, respectively, and just as the Honorable Prime Minister and Attorney General remain committed to the rule of law for all and sundry above politics as usual. I turn now, Madam Vice President, Honorable Senators, to the Magistrate Court Rules Reform addressed in the speech from the throne. And I quote from page 7 of the speech from the throne. My government will modernize and increase the efficiency of the judicial system to give wider access to justice. Additionally, to enhance efficiency, my government will amend the 82-year-old Magistrates Court rules, which governs proceedings in the Magistrates Court. Madam Vice President, while I welcome the amendments on the issue of process servers, or the police officers serving court documents, so as to release the police of this lucrative duty to them and allow them to get back to policing, I should like to urge the government to consider the following while amending legislation relative to magistrate court and magistrate court proceedings. Madam Vice President, there are Bahamian mothers that pay court fees, police or process server fees, in addition to lawyer fees, to take deadbeat dads to court and beg for these men that fathered children to maintain their children. These women must then suffer the indignity of lining up at the magistrate court every week or every month to see if that father put $50 for them to feed that child and take care of that child's education. It is unjust, it's undignified, and unbecoming of a country that claims our women and children are precious. These mothers incur all of these expenses in an effort to provide for their children and then walk out of court without recovering all this cost they incurred. There is no provision in the legislation, Madam Vice President, for the magistrates to grant costs to these mothers after they've incurred all of this cost. Madam Vice President, Honorable Senators, it is time that we do right by our women and our children. And I don't mean to add more work to the AG's office, but since you're already looking at magistrate court laws, we might as well make things right by our women. The Honorable Senator and leader of government business and I share the view that there are no such people as illegitimate or stepchildren. Let this mandate for change make that clear to all Bahamian men. Let's make things easier on the mothers of Bahamian children. Madam Vice President, Honorable Senators, I wish to advocate for those hard-working Bahamians that give their savings to car importers, who then run off with the money, and then these hard-working Bahamians have to sue these car importers in this very same magistrate court. The victims, mostly single mothers or young people, are given these options when they go to the magistrate court to file their summons. You can sue here in the magistrate court for $5,000, regardless of what you paid this man for your car, or you go to the Supreme Court. But before you walk away and file this summons in the magistrate court, please know that if your case is heard, if you can find him to serve him, and if he comes to court and you go through a trial and he accepts that he owes you $5,000 out of the $9,000 you gave to him, he may only be ordered to pay you $50 a week for the next 2 years. And then a magistrate says to our Bahamian people, these single mothers and these young people who have suffered this fate, unless you can prove he has the means to pay you more than $50 a week that he's proposing, how can I prove his means? How can this mother prove his means when she has no access to his assets? She has no access to his banking information. She has no access to his income. Who is this magistrate court act and legislation protecting. And we must fix these things, Madam Vice President. We must fix these things for our people, for our women. These injustices on our people and our women must be addressed by this administration while it amends magistrate court legislation to modernize and increase the efficiency of the judicial system. Having said all of that, I wish to recommend that the $5,000 ceiling for small claims in the magistrate court be amended and increased to at least $10,000. We have seen too many persons having to settle for suing somebody for $5,000 when they actually owe them $9,999. That has to be addressed. And I recommend that this government, with its mandate for change, ensure that all Bahamian men appreciate and see our women as the Attorney General does and our children as he does, in that there's no such thing as an illegitimate or stepchild in this country. Men must step up to their responsibility, and if they don't, our court systems must whip them into place. We must return dignity to our women and to our children. In closing, I again express my gratitude to Her Excellency, Dame Marguerite Pinling, for her eloquence, her poise, service, and stately demeanor all these years. We as a country, again, we are indebted to Her Excellency, and I pray that God continues to bless her. I wish to also express my gratitude to the Honorable Prime Minister for evacuating our people in the southern Family Islands ahead of the recent hurricane. Madam Vice President, I was so concerned for my family in Inagua after calling several of them and asking them to move and they kept telling me, oh, don't worry about it. We saw what's happening in the Caribbean. Don't worry about it. I got so concerned that I threatened my family. And I said, if you don't get on that plane, I will call the police station in Inagua and let them know you've hushed him out in the fridge. My aunt said, you play too much when you want to come on the plane. But I wish to publicly say now, having said that publicly, that none of my family in Inagua have hushed him out in the fridge. I can't vouch for my uncle's ex-wife, but I know none of my other family have hushed him out in their fridge. I also commend the PM for the decision and audacity to assist the people of Dominica despite the criticism from those that didn't see the bigger picture. Madam Vice President, one of the things I've learned in recent months is that as a leader, you make decisions and you stand by decisions, regardless of the backlash from people who don't see the bigger picture. This year it's Dominica, last year it was us. The Bahamas isn't moving. We're going to be in the same hurricane belt up until the end of November. We're going to be in the same place next year and the year after. My grandmother, Vivian Joaquin Moss, taught me, sow seeds, sow seeds. And I commend the Prime Minister for what he did. Madam Vice President, I support the resolution, and may God continue to bless the citizens, the residents, and the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Madam Vice President, it's my pleasant duty to wrap up this debate. Let me first I commend all senators on the quality of their presentations. Plainly, each and every one of you gave a great deal of thought. Even members on the other side, they're learning the art of opposition tactics. Hit and run. Hit and run. Even flavorless Slim Salty on the other side. Flavorless salt is hitting and running. And that's wonderful, you know, because when I sat on that side, I did the same thing. And I would always say to those on this side, you may win the vote, but I will win the argument. Unfortunately today, for members opposite, I must say you have lost the argument. But there's always another day. I would also since Senator Henfield has raised three, I think, critical issues, I want to thank him and indicate my personal support for each of his suggestions. He reminded me of one I was complaining about, only one of the three, and that was this issue about the cash limit that you could claim in the magistrate's court. That's decades old. Inflation has long caught up with that, and we really ought to take it up to $10,000 as the bar. So we will carefully consider and see whether we can incorporate each and every one of these three suggested amendments. It is a tragedy what goes on in terms of child support and maintenance in our country. And certainly the first FNM government brought in the system where instead of the order being made and mothers having to go to these delinquent fathers or their jobs trying to find the money, the orders were made to pay this money into court so that the ladies at least would not have the indignity of having to go publicly to some place where people could see them trying to get what the court had ordered for them. But now it's time for some further improvements. We will undertake them. I would also wish to associate myself with those remarks just made, commending the Right Honorable the Prime Minister for not yet for his that outburst of just humanity in his outreach and desire to help our sister island of Dominica. Let me remind Bahamians, we are all a bunch of little, small, black, independent island states. We are acknowledged by the world to be the most vulnerable societies in the world. They have a whole segment of the outreach of the world called Small Island Developing States. You contrast what happened in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. They have Big Brother, the United States, and even there are serious questions that I won't go into. I leave that alone. But at least they have Big Brother. What is the Big Brother that a Dominica has? What is the Big Brother that a Bahamas has? When the axe fall on us, we only have each other. I thought the whole attacks on social media were so unbecoming of us as Bahamians. I really urge those on social media, some of it was just joking and some of it quite funny, but the underlying intent, the attack on just basic Christian charity towards a brother in need, a brother country, a sister country. I have to say that, I saw a video clip of the Trinidadians setting up and moving a caravan, and the joy, and the people in Port of Spain blowing their horns, honking and encouraging them, that sense of giving. And I call on the better angels in the hearts and souls of Bahamians to remember, but for the grace of God, if only for that reason, but further than that, they are our brothers and sisters. One slave boat gone north and the other went south. It's the same people, the same genes, the same history, the same suffering and misery for generations, and the same triumph of achieving self-determination and independence. Let's not forget those things that unite us with our fellow countries in this Caribbean region. Now stop thinking of what divides us. There are only two other quick points I wish to make, and so I'll start with, do my little hit and run in the interest of time. I was unavoidably detained in my ministry yesterday afternoon when the leader of opposition business, Senator Mitchell, started his speech. And I'm informed that he, at some point, made a comment about this whole issue where we had a exchange of views to do with surcharges, and I just wish to set the law straight on that. I regret that he isn't here, but I believe that I'm informed that he offered the legal opinion that his contention in terms of what we were discussing was that a surcharge under the Financial Administration Audit Act could only be applied to public servants and not to non-public servants. But I wish to read the law and to correct that, in my view, erroneous legal opinion, if indeed that is what he said. Just for the record, under the provisions of the 2010 Financial Administration and Audit Act, it states that the financial secretary may make a surcharge against any person in the relevant amount, or such other amount as he may determine, if it appears to the financial secretary upon a report by the treasurer that such person who is or was an officer falls within any more of the following subparagraphs. And the subparagraph I had in mind when I said, why have people not been surcharged, meaning ministers, is subparagraph 3, that he is or was responsible, and I'll just read the relevant words because there are a number of words here, for the loss of any public money. It has public stores and government property, etc. Public money. If that officer was responsible for the loss of public money, the people's money, he or she can be surcharged by the financial secretary acting on a report by the treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Now, how is the word officer defined? The word officer is defined, and I will read the definition. Officer means any person employed in the service of the government. That includes a cabinet minister. The cabinet minister is employed during the period of his service in the service of the government. And therefore, that's my opinion. And as I said, of making many opinions, there is no end. But it can be tested easily. And the world is wondering why we are not testing it. Okay. Now, because we will move on. Because in the Wilbert Moss case, remember that, public officer was interpreted to include a legal officer, judicial and legal officer as well. Just don't forget it. Now, the second point I wish to address is the braggadocious and loud and assertive statement that 23 bills were passed by the Progressive Liberal Party. Well, yeah, okay, I'm going right through. I'm going through this right now. You see, I have the report and I have the facts. I think in medicine, they teach you to look for the facts. Same thing with law. Find out what the facts are. There's a famous thing about the facts, ma'am, just the facts, which they attribute to one of these crime series on TV, but actually it didn't come from there. But that's by the by. The facts, ma'am, just the facts, is like an iconic statement. And in law, we are taught to look for who, what, where, why, and how. Okay? And so I looked for the facts. of the 14 PLP bills, 9 were budget bills, okay, which you had to pass in order to run the government. 9 out of 14, okay. We passed 8, I believe, on my rough recollection, but I can get a hard number, but I think not less than 8. All right? So now we roughly even hay. Okay. Then, according to this government document in the House, I have the information. The government, the former government, tabled and passed, first of all, on the first page, 7 amendment acts. There's an existing law, and I want to change the word ministry to minister. This is here, sir. This is here. We want you to, shall I read? I told you I was going to read it slow. Shall I read every amending? I'm going to lay this on the table. Yes, but no, since you challenged me, a bill, number 11, a bill, number 10, out of your 9 budget bills was tabled and not passed. Okay? Number 11, a bill for an act to amend the Police Force Act. 2, a bill for an act to amend the College of the Bahamas Act. 13, a bill for an act to amend the Ministry of Finance or Foreign Affairs Act, pardon me. 14, a bill for an act to amend the Immigration Act. One host of little tiny amendments. Huh? Please, please, please. I need you to sit down and take your licks, okay? Like a man, all right? Now, let me give you the facts, and the Bahamian people the facts. Out of all of these bills tabled between May and November 22nd of November now. We ain't reached November yet. Only one substantial bill, one, was passed by the PLP. Amendment bills, tiny little amendment bills. Oh, I see, that's your fallback. Now, let me tell you what the Free National Movement has been doing. 1 second. We now have, there was no hurricane between May and November of 2012. Get your facts right. There was no disruption caused by nothing like that. Let us start, we had 2 already. Let us start with what we have now on the starting blocks, ready to go. 10 substantial, 10 substantial newly created bills. Now, the bill that the PLP, the one substantial bill that they passed was the Financial Administration and Audit Act. And, my friend, that was what they call, that was what they call, we still have until the 22nd of November, which is the time you pass your first bill. That's when you pass your first substantial bill. So we still got till the 22nd of November. Now let's get the facts right. Let's get the facts right, please. Okay. The bill that the PLP passed was what I call a system bill. They have hundreds of bills that the Law Reform Commission works on for years. They sit there as draft bills, and only when the political directorate determines we're ready to go with that, they bring up the draft. I'm going to explain that because there are some instances where we are going to do that, but I'll tell you specifically where they are, okay? That was one of those institutional draft bills knocking around at the administrative level because it was a change that the finance people were working on. So the extent to which it was being worked on before y'all brought it, it was being worked on under the FNM. And it was in the FNM made ready. But now, 1 second. Let me make another point clear. When you are creating a new bill, you're not amending a bill now. It is like, and I could tell you, because I have been doing nothing else for the last 5 months but sitting down with the law reform draftspersons and the draftspersons in my ministry, creating from our collective minds bills that are new, that are going to be dynamic, that are going to be transformative, and that are going to, firstly, bring into legal effect certain specific promises that we made to the Bahamian people, but in their implementation are going to have what we believe will be a permanent, positive, transformative effect for this country and its people. We have 10 new bills. The Proceeds of Crime bill is one of those bills that has been mandated by the international community since 2014. I met a very first draft at the bottom of one file. They had a consultant from England who came in. Half the bill had blocks. This requires policy input. This requires determination of which offenses are there. The whole thing was put together in part and broken right up and totally unsuited to what we required. So we sat there and we reinvented that act. We brought that act into compliance with all of the mandates of the international community, and it is ready to go. Similarly, there is a new Financial Transactions Reporting Act which will revolutionize and update and modernize the entire system of regulation of the financial services sector in this country. There is a Grand Bahama Port Area Incentives Act. This act is a new creation designed to repeal and replace the disastrous Grand Bahama bill passed by the former government. A bill that is disastrous, that even in one of the regulations we had to bring here today, was now for the next 6 months pushing off the legal obligation imposed on every single licensee in the port area except the chosen port companies. All those businessmen that the Senator Darville likes to scream about how they hurting, we pushed that off for another 6 months, as has occurred from the very date of birth of that disastrous bill, where every day gives a 6 months deferral, and yesterday we gave another 6 months deferral. That's how bad that bill was. The Grand Bahama Port Area Incentives Act is an act that will be moved on very shortly. There's a commercial enterprises bill designed, and once again, these are not bills cobbled up from something in a file. These are bills that have had to be reimagined, like childbirth, bringing together ideas, thrashing them out. Let me at this point, I want to commend the Deputy Law Reform Commissioner, Tina Roy, her staff at the Law Reform Commission, also the in-house draftspersons in the ministry, the Office of the Attorney General, Ministry of Legal Affairs, for the stellar work. Sometimes I would call them and say, come in Sunday. And we work all day Sunday. Come in Saturday, stay in late, work all day. And we would be doing these things. So here we go. I commend them for their service. We have a new commercial enterprises bill designed to attract new and diverse businesses that are not even looking at the Bahamas right now because of the rigidities that affect business creation in this country. We have a new ombudsman's bill that came from a draft knocking around since the first Ingram government, and we have reworked it, reimagined it, added extra powers, etc., and that's ready to go. These are ready to go. Oh, they will be brought. Yes. There are 10 of these bills right now. We have a new Integrity Commissions bill. This bill will replace the initial draft where we had an integrity commission and we had an anti-corruption commission, and we had two different bodies doing the same thing. We are creating one bill, an integrity commission, which will perform all of these functions, as well as receiving information, eliminating the Public Disclosures Act, the defunct bill, the defunct act, bringing public disclosure information in, allowing for the receipt of complaints or allegations, and having the power to investigate them, unlike the defunct Public Disclosure Commission, which had no power to do anything else except take, if they could get them. They couldn't even force people to do them. The Prime Minister had to intervene. My God. Anyway, so we have a totally reworked bill. That is ready to go. That is ready to go. We have, of course, you know, the Interception Bill, the National Intelligence Agency Bill. We also have the Inner City Designation of Tax-Free Economic Zones Bill. It is ready to go. It could have been passed in the last budget, but the PLP left the country in such a mess, and public finances were so tight. We were scrapping just to pay salaries. For the first 2 months, for the last month of the PLP administration and the first month of the FLM administration, you know how tight it was? It was so tight that in your last month, you couldn't pay the payment deductions that were owed to the mortgage companies and the banks by way of you sign for the payment to be deducted and paid by your employer for 2 months. The first month we came in May, and the second month in June we could not do it, and eventually we paid. By the end of June, we were able to satisfy all those debts. But things were so bad, the cash flow was so tight, that we determined, in the best interest of the Bahamian people, because a tax exemption scheme involves some loss of government revenue immediately, that we could not do that to all of the people who presently were expecting to receive their salaries on time, for their mortgage companies and their mortgages not to go into arrears because of a failure on the government to have the money to pay it. So we withdrew the bill. The bill was stable. We withdrew it. It was the 9th budget bill, if you will, but this is a real bill. We're ready to go with that bill now. We are ready. The government is ready. Our cash flow has improved because of the discipline and the whole prudence of our approach. Our cash flows are improving. And the government is looking very closely. This bill is ready to go. There's also the 10th bill, the constitutional amendment for the Director of Public Prosecutions. Once again, that was an entirely reinvented bill. The draft, the bill it passed in 2002, had to be rethought out and modernized, and we did all of that. Now, that's just bills. So we have 10 substantial, newly created bills. And yeah, we're going to lay them all one time, but we're not, unlike you, who could only pass one real bill in 6 months. That's okay. We got 10. And we got enough time to pass 2, which means we'll beat you. Okay. All right? So, don't worry about that. Now, Freeport is front and center because we are determined to do what has to be done to, reach out to our brothers and sisters on that other island, so important to all of us, and do what has to be done to bring Freeport up to where it can be. Okay, now, that's only that. Now, look here. You all passed a bunch of amendments and things. We got our list of amendments, too. We're ready to go with them right now. And they could go fast. We have the Game In-House Regulations Amendments. That's already tabled. The Companies Regulations. The Companies Amendment Act. Non-profit organizations regulations. You know, all kind of regulation line up. all had to be drafted, all had to be carefully considered, all had to be discussed so that they were in proper form, all had to be checked to make sure, or benchmarked to make sure we weren't offending any other provision in their substantive acts. So we're ready to go. We have the Civil Aviation Amendments Act, and you see my hand like this? That's the Civil Aviation's regulations that we got to table. They that thick, okay? 19 schedules. We have, yeah? Why y'all didn't pass them long time? Oh, no. We had 3 lawyers down there in civil aviation all last week getting them informed. They've been around, they were not informed. They had to be brought, 3 of my attorneys, 3 of my young, just started pupils and assistant counsel, and I want to commend them, two in particular, for the hard work they put in over the last week or so in civil aviation, along with the Director of Legal Affairs and principal draftspersons. They got them in shape. That's so. We have also the Civil Aviation Regulations, Accident Investigation Regulations. We have all kind of regulation and amendment. Now, talking about what I call institutional bills, let me say now, we have 3 land bills that are out for consultation, ready to go, to change. This is in addition to the 10 new bills. 3 land bills to get rid of the Quieting Titles Act, bring in a system of land registration, stop the rich and famous thieving Bahamian people land, providing a way in which legal interests that are not recognized by the common law can at least be recorded in a land registry so that any person wishing to buy would have to discharge the land charge that is placed by their recording of their interests. We have 6 bills to deal with these are bills that are required to be passed for the Bahamas to join the World Trade Organization. They're ready to go if we decide we want to go and join the real. We're halfway through it. It's just a question of when we decide we want to do it. We have 6 bills to bring. Among them things like anti-dumping legislation, something to do with standards, etc. That requires further consideration. And the last is we have 3 bills, which we will definitely go with in short order, to create the International Arbitration Center, which we want to really focus to help Grand Bahama and Freeport. So, behind all of the bluster of my very good friend, Senator Darville, lies one real bill.
Thank you. You don't want that any.
That's okay. We still got to the 22nd of November. We still got till the 22nd of November. And if we pass 2, we'll have done 100% more than you.
See if you can get him through the house.
Lord have mercy. Anyway, Madam Vice President, as requested by Senator Darville, I am more than happy to table and lay this document on the table of the House. And if you turn to the second page, after everyone, it tells you exactly when it was tabled in the House and passed. And so you see all them budget bills you relying on. Thank you. So Madam Vice President and colleague senators, I commend each of you once again for the quality of all of your presentations, the opposition for the verve and energy with which they bring to this debate. Some would say the shamelessness in respect of some of the retreads, but that's okay. I was accused of the same thing. I was accused of the same thing too in my day. Say how you could stand there and say that you forget what you're gonna do with doing or not, and you ain't doing whatever. And in that spirit of friendly rivalry, which ought to characterize this place, Madam Vice President, I now move that the question now be put. you're supposed to read this one. It's fine? Okay.
It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Resolved that a humble address be presented to Her Excellency the Governor General, thanking her for her most gracious speech at the opening of Parliament. As many as are in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that the following message be forwarded to Her Excellency the Governor General. Message to Her Excellency the Governor General from the Honorable the President and honorable members of the Senate. May it please Your Excellency. The Senate begs leave to thank Your Excellency for the most gracious speech with which Your Excellency was pleased to open the present session of Parliament. No. Order that the following message be forwarded to Her Excellency the Governor General. We just read the message. We don't have to read it again, right?
If you will keep if we copy the rules, yes, we will do the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Right here, see your resolution. Discharge of select committees.
But it says it's there.
It's the same thing, okay.
For the resolutions.
Further resolutions,
No further resolutions, Madam Vice President.
discharge of select committees, notice for future meetings,
None.
orders for clerk, adjournment.
Madam President, and I move that the business of this Senate be adjourned sine die. If I may obtain a second.
This,
No, put the question. It has been moved and seconded.
it has been moved and seconded that the Senate be adjourned sine die. As many as are in favor. As many against?
Carried.
The ayes have it.
Madam President, Madam Vice President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
Sign it.
The Senate.
The Senate stands adjourned sine